PowerPoint presentation for your board. Rick Cooper, field manager for the Hospital Land Management Office. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, supervisors. Pleased to be here today to provide you a briefing on the Clear Creek Management Area, Record of Decision, and Resource Management Plan. It's been a long process for the Hollister Field Office, so we're happy to be at a point where we're going to start implementing decisions on the ground. Protests to the Clear Creek Management Area proposed RMP and EIS have been resolved. This is the final decision of the Department of Interior. The Clear Creek Management Area Record of Decision, RMP, was approved by the BLM State Director and released on February 12, 2014. It establishes goals, objectives, management actions with BLM administered lands on the Clear Creek Management Area. And it also addresses current issues and resource conditions. Barring any litigation concerns, the BLM intends to open the Clear Creek Management Area Serpentine ACEC to public use beginning March 14th. Due to human health risks from asbestos exposure, the BLM will not be managing the motorized recreation in the Clear Creek Serpentine ACEC. BLM will provide highway licensed vehicles into the area to support non-motorized recreation opportunities. Ongoing research to evaluate human health risks from Clear Creek Management Area visitor use will allow the BLM to reassess land use plan decisions in the future if significant new information on human health risks from exposure of airborne asbestos fibers becomes available. So when we started this process in 2008, in terms of the environmental impact statement, we had received information from the Environmental Protection Agency's health risk assessment, and based on trying to incorporate that information into our EIS, we found that effectively, I'll call them administrative controls, because a lot of times what you do with a hazardous area is when you begin to use that area or work in that area, you immediately begin to look for administrative controls which can mitigate risk in that area. The area that in Clear Creek, the Serpentine ACEC, we looked at the type of activities that were occurring in that area and the number of visits of that activity. Those were the two real administrative controls that we could feasibly manage within the area, and those were the ones that were analyzed in the alternatives for the EIS. You can also look at other type of controls for the area, such as design and engineering best management practices that can be done in that area, which might involve improving roads, putting road base down that would reduce emissions of asbestos off roads, off trails. It's such a large area with an extensive trail network. We considered what opportunity or what methods might be out there, but they were difficult and we did not analyze those in the EIS. And then there's other methods of personal kind of mitigation measures that you could take in terms of protective equipment that could be used. Those type of requirements of public to use protective equipment would be somewhat difficult for BLM to try to enforce. And then finally, visitor use and behaviors in using the area. Those were interesting concepts in terms of can you change riding behavior? Can you come up with different strategies for use out there? And while that specific thing was not addressed in our EIS, it is something that's being looked at now with State Parks OHV Division. They are actively have been out there since December, consecutive months, looking at opportunities for creating strategies for riding out in that area that would reduce risk. So those were the things that we looked at, and the administrative controls were the best and most feasible approach that we could take at the time, and that's what we utilized. So recreation opportunity and motorized access into the area. In the Serpentine ACEC, which is highlighted in the green, it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's a boundary. It's not really green, it's kind of this opaque color here, but there's a boundary around this area that is the ACEC. It approximates the red line, which is the geologic boundary of the Serpentine Formation. And so the Bureau of Land Management will allow limited use within this ACEC area on this designated route system with highway licensed vehicles. And the entrance into the ACEC area is going to be handled by a permit system. So it's each individual entering the ACEC will need a permit that they'll obtain from the Bureau of Land Management Hollister Field Office. The total allowable days that an individual will be able to enter into this area in a motorized vehicle and utilize that would be 5 days. And the permit authorizes the individual effectively in a motorized vehicle anyways the use of this route, which goes out, leads to an access point in Fresno County, get them to Walking Rocks, leads them on a scenic touring route. There's a number of opportunities to see some of the natural and geologic features in the area. If you're going to enter the area just on foot from access points that we have, actually the access points that we have in this area, and then there are other access points that people do enter in from different locations that they have available public or have available access to private landowners. If they're going to enter into this area, then they can get basically have 12 days of use as far as entering and hiking in the area. So the other thing that I wanted to note is, and I don't know if you can see, if the supervisor can see it a little bit better, but this area, this kind of pinkish area here, this is the Cantua area, called the Cantua Zone. This area down in here is called the Condon Zone. From the Fresno County line, which is right there where the light is, back to the Clear Creek entrance is the San Benito River Zone. And then we have the Tucker Mountain Zone out in this area here. Now, these zones are not serpentine, and they do not have asbestos in those areas. And so I just point those out because I'm gonna refer back to some of the management actions that we're going to be proposing for those areas in a minute. But it's just that ring of other lands that surround ACEC, and we'll be looking at enhancing other recreation opportunities in those areas as we can.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. We're aware that BLM's erect gates on some of the, I'm going to call it the county roads, for the sake of a better term in my own mind. But with these changes that you're talking about as far as access, how does that affect people coming through our county, maybe stopping downtown Hollister, spending a few bucks here before heading down south to the BLM? Because what it sounds like to me, and I could be wrong, I haven't studied the accesses as thoroughly as I'd like to have knowledge of. It almost seems that it's easier to go through Fresno County and avoid San Benito County altogether. Is that true or not true?
I wouldn't think it would be true, wouldn't be easier. And I was going to discuss gates and locations in a little bit, but since you brought it up, I'll point to it now. We're proposing to have a gate at the J Hill site, which this is the Coalinga Road, Idria, Coalinga, or not Idria, Coalinga, Los Gatos Creek Road. And then this is the route that goes up and over to Idria here. So we're looking at having a gate at J Hill. We're going to have a gate at the R1, R11 intersection, which is almost right where the Idria Road comes onto the BLM ramp, right there. And then we've always had a gate out in here, and there's no public access from the Fresno side. This is Fresno County. And this road that comes up in here, there's no, you have to go through a private land to even get to this point. And that's one of the things the public brought up. Those that wanted to go out to Block Blue Rocks, which is our ACEC out in Fresno County, they were going to require access through this ACEC area. So there's actually 3 gates that will be managed by the agency, one in Fresno, 2 in San Benito. But the idea is that there would be a drive-through here from Idria back across to Third Creek, and you should go back to come back to Hollister here, and drive out from Hollister and do a loop to Idria, and back down to Hollister. So the next slide. So it's a little hard to see, but you have black, which is still the managed route that we will utilize permits for. This comes throughout to kind of the magenta color, which isn't showing up real well here. Hopefully it shows up better on your computer. The magenta routes are actually administrative routes that we have for designated for our purposes, for monitoring and for our law enforcement, any search and rescue things that both ourselves and the county sheriffs might have to do in the area. So those are administrative routes that we will continue to maintain to some level of use. It may be, they're not going to be maintained at a high level, but they will be maintained so that we can have four-wheel access into areas as we need it. And they'll also provide a second purpose, because in addition to the original access permit that I discussed that allowed you to use the one major route through there, the scenic touring route, there's two additional permits that we're going to have. One is going to be for the existing right holders, the private landowners, right-of-way holders, mining claimants. We're going to have an annual permit for those individuals that have lands inside the ACEC. And we're going to kind of copy what we do with grazing lessees in terms of giving them annual permits. We'll have an annual permit there for them. They'll get the combination of their combination lock that they'll use on the gates, and they'll have complete access in there to their respective property or mining claim on a direct route to the property. If for some reason they decide they want to use the touring route, then they would have to go ahead and get the regular access permit to use that. But if they're just going into their property, they would be in and out on their own. Supervisor Barris?
Thank you, Rick. You mentioned that you're happy that this is now, and with all due respect, I'm not happy, but and I'm gonna say that probably those prior users are not either. When you say that we will change the combination on an annual basis, you know, this is really cumbersome. This is not freedom for property owners. What is really gonna happen here is you're going to actually make it cumbersome for property owners to get to their properties. You're going to govern where they go and where they do not go to get there. And you're actually going to discourage the access and the approach. And I'm gonna give you a scenario. You have a property owner there that wants to use their property and invite 100 people to come over and enjoy a picnic, a day out there. How are you gonna handle that if every person that goes through there has to have a permit and you have to have information on every automobile? Tell me how that is going to be addressed.
Well, it's not going to be, I'm not saying that the permitting process isn't going to be somewhat cumbersome. It's particularly going to be cumbersome at the start. I think over time, access into the area, the permitting process will get refined. We're currently working with recreation.gov, which is an organization that is used nationwide for the purposes of issuing permits into, you know, wilderness areas, wild and scenic rivers, those type of things. And they have group events that go in there that have large numbers where people permit. So it's possible for us to address that for a landowner. If we needed to do that, we would be able to address that, I believe.
Well, and one of the things, and thank you, Mr. Chair, I still have the floor. I'm thinking of this is a joke that it's going to be that we need to review it later. Almost like it was a joke that we were gonna temporarily close the road back in 2008, and here it is 6 years later. So I'm sorry if I don't believe that, and I don't trust that that's going to happen. I think it's gonna continue to get worse and more cumbersome, just as it has gotten worse since 2008. So I don't think that this is going to be easy for property owners, and I really feel that it's an injustice and a lot of freedom is taken away from not only just the regular public to be able to enjoy the area, but from property owners as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The other permit I mentioned, there would be two. There would be one for the landowners. Within the ACEC area, there will also be an individual backcountry pass. And again, that is an opportunity for scientists, hunters, other recreationists, rock hounding, people wanting to do biological studies. Again, it would be very similar to the